Good afternoon, folks. Or at least it's afternoon for me. Right. So let's soldier on and try to watch and react to some more of this House Judiciary Committee hearing. Okay. So without further ado, let's go right into the meat of the subject and let's start. Let me just get this ready, all nice and ready, and let's go.
Decide what we can say and what we can't?
Absolutely not.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I'll give the ranking member a little extra time if he so desires. With that, I'll recognize the gentleman from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And firstly, I was pleased to join on the Codell, and it was a very fine, good Codell. I appreciate the chair, my friend and my classmate from 2006.
Apple juice.
One of the things I found most heartening about the
Nice
Codell, we had a tour of Parliament, and along with us were two conservative members who were, I think they were either in House of Lords, maybe one was in the Lords and one was in the House of Commons, but they talked to us about Magna Carta and about how it's the basis of our laws, and there was a copy there and copies here and there and whatever, but how precious the Magna Carta is. And they suggested to us that a legislator, this was in the House of Lords where he spoke, that a legislator is not somebody who votes. A legislator's job is not just to vote. A legislator's job is to stand up to an out-of-control executive. Very telling for British Parliament members to instruct us on what we should be doing, and I thank him for that. I'm a strong supporter of free speech and always have been, but I find this hearing a bit disingenuous because of the problems we have here in America. Free speech includes the speech of those with whom we disagree, people who say vile things, and in my case, I find racist and anti-Semitic and Islamophobic type speech is something I find foul, but it's protected by free speech and offensive speech as well. That does not mean that there aren't limitations, however, and speech can be harmful, dangerous, and infringe on other people's rights. It isn't a free-for-all, though. And the U.S. and our First Amendment does not have a monopoly on what constitutes free speech. There is speech protected by the First Amendment, like corporate political donations, which I think is misplaced and misapplied, and there are times when our legal system itself suppresses disfavored speech. I passed the Speech Act in the 111th Congress. I think Mr. Issa was my co-sponsor, and it dealt with the fact that Britain is a favored nation for defamation actions, and it's easy to get a defamation judgment there. We would not allow those judgments to be recognized here in our country under the Speech Act.
Really?
If the activities that took place
Okay.
did not conform to our laws on free speech.
Let me check my messages.
And I would think Mr. Farage could try to look at changing their laws on defamation and contour more to what we see in the First Amendment. And that might be good for the people in England. Two of my good friends, most revered friends, were from England, London, Christopher Hitchens and Sir Bill Browder. And they've written books, and they could be subject to such laws as well. But work on protecting your English authors, who, from Shakespeare on, they've been pretty good.
Oh, shit.
We used to be bipartisan in these efforts to look out for free speech, but President Trump has taken on free speech in ways that would never have been thought about. And I think Mr. Lofgren brought some points to Professor Kaye. And it's not just laws, it's autocratic actions as well. President Trump, as Mr. Dalio said clearly, but so many other people have said it and felt it, is bringing us on the verge of an autocratic state. And his actions in trying to bring law firms to their knees, colleges to their knees,
Right about that.
federal employees, students, et cetera, is anti-free speech, anti-opportunity, and fear for themselves and their futures if they speak out. Even Congresspeople could be subject in the future, I'm sure, with some of the ways we're seeing this Justice Department act with questions about their speech. Our president has sued every broadcasting company almost, and they've gone after CNN, they've gone after NBC, and they pick some of these fringe people to pick on the Ukrainian president about his attire. It's bizarre what's going on in our country, and I'm concerned. They try to silence and shake down those who don't conform to whatever the president thinks. We need to understand that his review of the Smithsonian exhibits and other
He is
African American
putting it into
museum
perspective.
and saying there was too much emphasis on how bad slavery was. I don't know how you could find anything good about slavery, and Edwin Starr, who's a singer, would tell you slavery, like war, there's absolutely nothing good about it. So we shouldn't be trying to. Professor Kay, how would you compare, from your expertise, how we evaluate and compare with relative states of freedom of expression written in the United States? Where do you see the comparisons?
Well, I think right now we're at a very dismal place in the United States, but I do think that it's also worth thinking a bit about some of the issues that Mr. Farage raised. So, for example, he mentioned the issue of a law against Islamophobia, but there's also a lot of discussion about laws against anti-Semitism and against other attacks on people on their status, on the basis of their religion and so forth. Those are actually valuable conversations to have. But you can't just sort of pick and choose which censorship or which restrictions are okay and which are not. You really need to have a general view as to what's appropriate. And I think, again, the chairman's point about censorship being a focus on criticism is the appropriate one. And to the extent that we can make that comparison, which country is really doing more, or which countries are really doing more to tamp down, to silence critics, that's the harm to our democracy. And right now I see that more in the United States than I see in Europe or the UK.
Thank you,
I'm a gentleman,
Professor.
Mr. Barber.
And I'd just like to say to you, welcome. I have a lot of British friends and respect for Britain. I have a great time when I'm there, but I'm happy we won the war.
The gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Arizona.
Oh, God
Thank you,
damn
Mr.
it.
Chairman. You know, the statement that Trump is bringing us to the edge of being an autocratic state in and of itself disproves the premise of that statement. Think about that. It's absurd. Under the First Amendment, the general proposition is that government should not be regulating the content of its citizens' speech. You have the opposing idea that it's the responsibility of government to decide not only what its citizens should think, but what content they are allowed to see and engage with. To some, the reality of the government regulation of speech may sound like it's a distant, authoritarian notion that won't come to the United States of America, but I would ask you to just think back again. I'm reminded of Orwell's 1984. Think of the memory hole that people are trying to memory hole right now, some even on this panel, sir, who don't want you to realize how bad a government can be when it attempts to censor right here in the United States. For instance, President Obama, this is from an article I'd asked unanimous consent. President Obama has been the most aggressive administration in history, not only going after whistleblowers, but after pursuing reporters who write their stories. How about this one, the Biden legacy? How about this whole stack, and I'll put these in just a second. It's convenient to memory hole what the Biden administration did, what they did to suppress dissent and contrary opinion. I'll get into that in a second.
Biden and Obama did not impose blind tariffs on the entire world. They did not blackmail their allies. They did not blackmail their suppliers. And you keep talking about the same shit. And really, as this so-called hearing progresses, more and more, all I see is nothing. Really, no contents. Because from the principle, from the beginning of this entire speech, you have no legitimacy to talk about free speech in Europe or in the UK. I also dislike some things that are happening in the UK. That does not mean that their institutions are not working. They are working. The issue in the UK, and I will address this in a separate video, is the way that lobbies have the power to both decide and fund what parties and politics do. That is the issue. That is the issue. Money. It can be solved. A brave government can put out a couple of laws and end this state of affairs in a legislature. Reason why I am still so disappointed with Labour from the perspective of a foreigner that does not live in the United Kingdom. Attention, I have friends in the United Kingdom. I even had family members that were in the United Kingdom, but right now the family members that I had in the United Kingdom are in Ireland. So that is the issue. And these people, they continue to talk and talk and talk and talk. I'm soldiering on this, but this is not even news. But let's continue. Let's continue.
The actions of European governments show that the type of censorship by government is not only possible, but very much doable. Under the guise of public safety, government officials in Europe have
The actions of Mr. Trump in the United States prove that. The actions of the governments of in the EU do not prove that.
suppressed and arrested individuals who have simply engaged in political speech that is arbitrarily deemed to be unspeakable.
We don't have Proud Boys parades going on in the streets with swastikas. You do.
By the government. This kind of regime doesn't just appear on the scene, though. It takes time to develop. And we've seen it here, and that's why I'm taking this opportunity to remind you that FISA must be reformed. FISA must be reformed.
Oh.
So, Mr. Price, you alluded to this, and so I have this document right here that compares the GDP growth of EU versus the U.S. 1998 to 2023. And the U.S. has grown about 87%, almost 90%. The EU has increased its GDP by about 13%.
Number one, the EU is constituted by a number of countries. It's constituted, for example, by Germany and France, that are basically powerhouses of the world. And you are trying to put in the same bag a country like Germany with a country like Portugal with 10 million people. And even so, relatively to our population, our GDP has not stopped from growing, even through the crisis. Yours is stagnated. And at what cost do you have your GDP? And let me also tell you something. GDP is a very funny thing. GDP is the amount of wealth produced in the country. You have the United Kingdom, a lot of GDP. Even Russia had a high GDP up until a year ago. The question is, where is that wealth? Where is that money? In whose hand it is? Who is applying it? You might have a country, like for example Portugal, where the entire GDP is practically reinvested in the country. It refinances companies that are producing products or services. It via our taxes, they pay for social services like healthcare. Okay, and you in the United States, you don't even have a healthcare system. You claim to have one, but you don't. You don't. And yet we continue with this entire speech of the GDP. You want to know what GDP is good for? The GDP is good for you to determine how many rich bastards you have in your country. Talk with me about employment. Talk with me about quality of life. Talk with me about salaries. Talk to me about hours of work. How many hours do you work? And let me just, I will take the opportunity just to tell you this. The average productivity of your workers, even with you slaving them to death, is barely equal to the average in the EU. Think about this. Workers in the EU have healthcare, they have vacations. If they are sick, they can take days out of work to get better. They have less working hours. All extra hours are paid or compensated. A series of things that varies according to the country. For example, in Portugal, the average time of vacation mandatory over a year is around 4 weeks, more or less. I think it's 22 days. And this is working days, meaning Monday to Friday. And what do you have?
So you have almost a 6x variable there. The question is, when you set these kind of draconian fines and you set up a system that is amorphous and almost indefinable.
It's not amorphous, it's not indefinable, it's well defined.
Might it not also have some more than just even the safety, ostensible safety of the society? Might it lead to trying to regulate when you can't innovate?
I think that's very much the case, sir.
It's getting really hard to listen to these people. So, to continue to show you this, I will abstain myself from commenting because this is getting to be too much.
We've seen it not just in the area of speech, but obviously, as we were discussing, the Digital Markets Act, data protection, and so on. And Europe is facing some very serious structural problems demographically, financially. And a lot of what I think is inspiring the DSA is what we saw from Germany beginning after the election of President Trump and after Brexit, which is to control the narrative, slow down speech. And into that, then, they're throwing a very wide net out that's affecting all kinds of legitimate speech. We talked about my client Päivi Räsänen in Finland, who's prosecuted for sharing a tweet from the
You're
Bible.
lying.
It's absolutely outrageous.
Okay,
and that becomes now the standard that the DSA will set, not just for Europe, but possibly and predictably globally.
And similarly, Mr. Reed, that's what's going to happen to your app innovators. They're not going to be able to have access to 440 million people in a marketplace in Europe without having to go through essentially government censorship.
Our market.
Well, I think you hit it earlier when you said that their
Not
focus
yours.
has been on regulating or adding legislation. And it isn't one piece of regulation or one piece of legislation that has caused problems for our innovators, both in the UK, in the EU, and in America. It's been the stacking effect. Because if you start with one regulation, you say, I can handle that, I'll build that into my business. It's when you have one, then two, then four, then six. So what
Americans, the early generation, they had jobs, they had healthcare, they had salaries, they even had vacations. And now, and you want to continue with this speech that our way is not better than yours.
What's been the biggest problem for growth has been their answer is that old quip, the beatings will continue until morale improves. We often feel that way about regulation.
No.
Innovation will get regulated until we get more innovation, and I don't think that will work out.
Thanks, Mr. Reed. Now I'll finish with you,
Yes.
Mr. Farage. What happened to the great countries of the West? I mean, seriously, and their liberal understanding of civil.
What happened to the United States of America? Why has it turned itself into this? Something that is, in my view, right now, and after listening to this hearing, is the same as Russia. You are equal.
Rights and the ability to speak one's mind openly without fear of arrest or censorship or abuse of harassment by the government.
I think what went wrong in many ways is we forgot why we actually had those liberties and had those freedoms in the first place. We
eliminate
forgot,
people like you.
as I mentioned and touched on earlier, we forgot the huge sacrifices
Demagogues like Mussolini
made by
Hitler.
citizens alive at that time
And like
to defend
you.
those principles against tyranny and against dictatorship.
Oh,
We've
yes.
kind of we've lost our way in understanding why we are as we are. And I think
Here he is
that
being
has
mocked.
permeated through the
Your
education system.
representative, British.
Well, I'm not sure we've been
Here he
teaching
is.
good values. The slavery comment was made earlier. I completely understand there's nothing good about slavery. But take our country, we spent decades driving slavery off the high seas. So whilst we were perpetrating
Decades. Decades. You know how much a decade is? A decade is 10 years. You spent centuries profiting on slavery. My country, Portugal, we also had slavery. But at least in my history books, I pick up a damn history book and it's there. It's written. And you don't teach that to your kids in school in the UK. Or you teach it with your particular narrative of trying to make sense. Oh, that was not that serious. United Kingdom is, in my opinion, the greatest slaver in history since Rome. You enslaved entire nations, just like the Romans enslaved entire nations. You starved India to feed your country and your troops. You starved Ireland to feed your country and your soldiers. And you don't even have respect for that. You have absolutely no respect for people.
traders to begin with, we actually, in the end, drove it off the high seas. So we need to teach our kids a sense of balance about our history, about the sacrifice that's been made. That's my feeling.
Mr. Chairman, I have some unanimous consent.
Gentleman is recognized.
This one, GDP growth comparison EU to US 1998 to 2023. This one, Biden's press freedom legacy, empty words and hypocrisy. Massive government censorship during and about COVID from the New Civil Liberties Alliance. The Fifth Circuit agrees that federal officials unconstitutionally coerced or encouraged online censorship under the Biden administration. This one, information during the pandemic suppressed. Feds blew $267 million fighting misinformation under Biden as Trump vows to ban censorship cartel. This one, how the FBI violated the privacy rights of tens of thousands of Americans. This one, Inspector General report on FBI.
How about we talk? I'm sorry. I know I was trying not to interrupt, but how about we talk about what ICE is doing right now? Oh, I see. It's just foreign tourists or immigrants or visitors and brown people. Well, my friend, I am not brown. As you can see, I'm really white. I'm Portuguese German. I probably, when you put on a picture of a stereotypical white dude, you will see my face there. Biden.
FISA abuse tells us one thing: we need radical reform. This one, UK comedy writer Graham Linehan arrested over social media posts criticizing trans activists.
Again.
Why did Lucy Connolly receive a 31-month?
Because she broke British law on hate speech. And she was convicted by a British court. Who are you to tell those people that they did it wrong? When you allow a convicted felon to be your president.
Sentence for Southport tweet. Policing thought crime should have no place in the UK. Britain's emerging police state. Knock, knock, it's the thought police. As thousands of criminals go uninvestigated, detectives call on a grandmother. Her crime, she went on Facebook to criticize Labour councillors. This one, UK steps up free speech crackdown as armed police arrest comedy writer Graham Linehan at Heathrow Airport.
Again, it's the third
and this
time.
one, Britain's new thought police. how labor plans to police your online speech.
Again, stop police, again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You bet.
You repeated
Without
yourself.
objection.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to offer 2 unanimous consent requests. I'm not going to challenge the farce as much as the gentleman and the others, but 2 that record letters to you, 1 to you and 1 to Commissioner Verkunen, pushing back on the framing of this hearing from 30 EU and U.S. academics.
Thank you. Without objection. Gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Farage, welcome to the United States of America. This isn't your first time here, correct?
Correct.
You were here in 2024 in Milwaukee, weren't you?
I've been coming here since 1982 on a very regular basis. I work for American companies
What
for many,
purpose
many
were
years.
you coming to Milwaukee for? Why did you come to Milwaukee?
I've been in Milwaukee many times. I think that
Well,
particular
in
event
2024
was a
was
convention.
the convention, the Republican
I think
convention.
that's right. I think you're right.
The Trump convention,
I think you're right. Very good.
where Trump was coronated.
Well, he won, didn't he? I mean, yes,
He had
that's
already
what kinda
won.
happens,
We already
you
knew
know,
who
I
would
mean,
Be careful, Farage. Be careful. This is a brown face and a black man, but he's no fool. He's not stupid. This, my friend, is a politician. Even if I don't agree fully with what this man says, I respect him.
who had won.
It's called
And it
political
was
parties.
his coronation, and you attended, and you also attended Trump rallies, correct?
I've attended lots of Trump rallies.
Make America Great Again rallies, many of them, and you
Upbeat,
publicly,
optimistic,
and
happy,
you-
wonderful, joyous
you
events.
publicly
yes.
endorsed his.
I've thoroughly enjoyed them. I've even spoken to
You
them.
endorsed him for president, and you attended his election night watch party,
I did.
and you consider Trump to be your mentor, correct?
No,
He's not your mentor,
no.
but he is somebody who you want the support of, and you have the support.
Yes,
of.
I do. I think he's a very, very brave man.
Because
I
you
think
are
his view
getting
of the
ready to
world
run for Prime
is,
Minister of Great Britain, correct?
Oh, I've been trying for years.
Mr. Farage, speaking over other people when they are talking is considered rude. Here, in Great Britain, everywhere. You are not funny.
Yeah.
And as it stands right now, you
They're laughing
head
at
up
you,
a party. How many seats in the Parliament are there?
651, if you include the Speaker, that is.
650.
Yes.
And how many are a part? How many seats does your party hold?
How many seats do the opinion polls say we're going to get next time? Is that
Well,
your
no,
question?
I mean,
oh, I
the
see.
numbers don't lie. You only have 4 seats, right?
I'm afraid so, yes.
And so you are indeed the leader of a fringe party.
Oh, I'm a fringe, all right. Don't worry about that. Yes, absolutely. Everything I've ever done.
And as a fringe party leader seeking to run for Prime Minister of Great Britain, you need a lot of money in order to blow up like the MAGA movement has blown up.
What you need is a message of truth and a message of hope. And
Well, you need money also, right?
Money's helpful, but it's not the primary thing you need.
So the first thing that
you're
came
wrong.
out of the chair's mouth this morning during his opening statement had to do with Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And you're carrying water for Elon Musk today, aren't you?
From what I can see, Elon Musk is abusive about me virtually every single week. But it's a free country, so
But you
he's
never
entitled
stop
to do that.
trying to ingratiate yourself with him.
Wrong.
Well, I mean, and
No, wrong.
you are familiar with the
No,
fact.
wrong. I have.
You are familiar with the
I've had
fact,
public.
Mr.
I love this guy.
I
Farage,
have had a
that
public fallout with Elon Musk.
Donald Trump's campaign benefited to the extent of $250 million from Elon Musk.
Well, I mean, how much
You are familiar with that,
How much
correct?
did Mr. Zuckerberg give to the Democrats? I mean, this is what happens, and people are.
Well, he didn't give any money
On Musk, let me be clear.
to the
I have
Democrats.
had.
He was sitting behind
I have had.
Trump with the rest of the tech bros,
I am
and you are
going-
here today
I'm going to answer
to
your
impress
question.
all of those tech bros,
You can
including
keep going as
Elon
long as
Musk.
you
Isn't
want.
that correct?
I'm going to answer your question very, very honestly.
You need money from Elon Musk in order to get
I have.
elected Prime Minister of Great Britain. That's the bottom line. Isn't that correct?
We consider all day, as long as the chairman allows us. I don't mind. I had a very public falling out with Elon Musk.
But you're still trying to get some money from him, though.
Over a political issue.
It's not about the prior disputes.
I'm sorry,
you're
it was
trying
a
to
fundamental.
You're trying to ingratiate yourself with the tech bros by coming over here and trying to.
Can I get a cup of coffee or something?
And you're arguing.
Be here a long time.
What you're arguing is that the citizens of Great Britain should pay a tariff if these tech companies are not allowed to violate the laws of Great Britain.
No, I'm not. That was a falsehood put out by the British Prime Minister today.
That is precisely what you are saying, Mr. Farage.
Say in your
Prime Minister's
statement,
questions, I have never.
in your statement,
I have never suggested any
your
of the
statement,
kind.
you don't call
My
for
statement is very
tariffs
clear.
as tools to
My
force
statement is
Great
very
Britain's.
clear. My statement is very.
You are not
It
calling
might
for.
surprise you.
You are not
Mr.
calling
Johnson.
for
It might surprise you to know
tariffs and trade sanctions.
Trade, you may not know this, but trade between our countries is actually rather important. You are the biggest investor in our country, and we're the biggest investor in yours.
Time of the gentleman from Georgia has expired, but the gentleman should be able to say some kind of response.
Order, Mr. Chairman.
Shut him up.
He's been rude, he's been disgusting, he's been hilarious.
Hang on. The gentleman's time has expired. I feel like we should give Mr. Farage a chance to respond to one of the many questions he was not allowed to respond to. So we'll give you 30 seconds, Mr. Farage, and then we'll move on to our next one. Because I know Mr. Farage does have to leave in about an hour, so we want to get through as many members as we can.
Number one, I had a public fallout over a political issue with Elon Musk. I can't be bullied by anybody. I haven't changed my mind. Last time I looked, he was being spectacularly rude about me yesterday. That's life. If we believe in free speech, we live with it. What I have made very clear.
Fixated on.
What I have made. Sorry, no, this is my turn. I think.
Yeah, you got another
Thank
15
you, Mr.
seconds.
Chairman. What I have made perfectly clear in this paper is the situation we've got with successive pieces of legislation, including now the Online Safety Act, is a danger to trade between our countries. And allies and friends and trading partners have honest conversations with each other. I hope many American companies and politicians have honest conversations with the British government. I've not suggested sanctions at all in any way.
Good luck on your race.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd remind my colleague from Georgia that President Trump was openly nominated after decisively winning the primary votes across the country. That's in open contrast to the Democratic nominee, who has decreed the nominee of her party in spite of the fact she did not receive a single primary vote. So I would be a little careful if I were him about talking about coronations. I do agree with my Democratic colleagues that we need to be on guard against suppression of free speech, whether it's coming from the left or the right. But I disagree with them that the chief executive regulating the executive branch's communications or conforming executive agencies and grantees to executive policy is somehow a threat to free speech. The executive branch is designed to speak with one voice, a voice chosen every 4 years by the people. And I disagree with them that suing for defamation is an infringement on speech in a legal system where the truth is an absolute defense. The threat to democracy is from the government regulating other people's communications. We're now discovering that the Biden administration used the FBI to pressure tech companies to censor the communication.
The Biden administration did not pressure anything. It was very public. They told the tech companies to obey the law, sir.
Of the American people over a free discussion of everything from COVID policy and origins, the Russian collusion hoax, Biden family influence peddling, climate change. I myself was the victim of this censorship when I warned of the damage that the COVID lockdowns were causing.
Oh, you're one of those? You're one of those vaccine deniers? Okay, then you can speak all that you will. I won't interrupt you. Your speech has absolutely zero value to me.
Now, democracy assumes that the best way to separate truth from lies or wisdom from folly, or good from evil, or love from hate, is to place the two of them side by side and then trust the common sense and good judgment of the people to know the difference. But this assumes that the people have full and unfettered freedom to express themselves and to challenge the claims and opinions of each other. Now, some of our colleagues seem to be suggesting that we should transfer that prerogative from the people to the government. That's the very definition of authoritarianism. Mr. Farage, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we are as citizens, we should be free to make our minds up, to express our opinions, to a large extent to make our own mistakes, provided, and we all know there's a limit to free speech. The professor talked about incitement earlier, and of course, we would be absolutely joined together on that. We don't want incitement. We don't accept incitement, and if people put out
you incited hatred that caused, it was not exclusively the only cause. But it's on public record, although you have not been formally accused of anything. But this was in British news, so I suppose anyone can talk about it, including me. Your famous speech was one of the pivotal moments to convince thousands of people to go out in the streets, burn, pillage, attack, and even try to kill people in the streets when the riots happened.
Something irrational or insightful, but very quickly put their hands up and apologize and learn their lesson. That's kind of how the world is. I do not want government to be the arbiter of what I should think.
We have a word for that. It's demos kratis, rule by the people.
So,
Demos kratis. At least learn the language before you enunciate it. I did not have ancient Greek. I did have Latin. And in Latin, we learned how to enunciate words in Greek. If you are unable to enunciate the words, then you should abstain yourself from making a fool out of yourself by enunciating them correctly. For example, most English-speaking people are not able to enunciate my name. That in Portuguese, you read it, João. So I usually just tell people, look, you cannot enunciate my name, then call me John, which is the same thing. That name is the same. It's the name of the prophet, a very biblical name. Not my full name, but a very biblical name.
Yes, I'm with you on that. I also agree with you that COVID, I touched on this earlier, it was during COVID when rational debate about many important issues, be it mask wearing, be it lockdowns, rational debate on these things was frankly stamped out, and this was supported by big social media companies, many, not GB News obviously, but many TV stations, etc. It's a very...
Let's take an opportunity to talk about our bosses and make ourselves a couple of bucks.
Very dark period that we're
in this
coming
country,
out.
what we're discovering is that was being done under pressure by the FBI, directed by the executive branch of the government under Joe Biden. But just briefly, how did this happen to the UK and the EU, and what lessons should we be drawing here today?
Well, we joined the EU half a century ago, or the EEC as it was then called. It was a huge mistake, in my opinion. We forgot about common law, the kind of law that you guys have always enjoyed too. We sort of gradually transferred to a European way of...
Mr. Farage, the United Kingdom kept its particular way of administrating law in every aspect. The only thing the United Kingdom did was to discuss measures that altered laws or regulations or that created law in the EU Parliament. All of those laws you are talking about, all that EU law, you are still with that rhetoric. It was also a UK law. You continue to say absolutely the same things you said before Brexit.
Thinking, we incorporated a Human Rights Act, which kind of meant really that, as opposed to being born.
You did not incorporate the Human Act. That is a part of the law that we decided after World War II. Okay? Sorry for this. That is a part of the law that we decided after World War II to prevent future situations from happening due to the sheer amount of the destruction in Europe. In your country, and Mr. Churchill, that I absolutely dislike for different reasons, but he was pivotal in having that discussion and in creating that framework so that every country in Europe would be entitled to resort to a superior court. It's not a EU court, it's a European court. United Kingdom is a European state too, and this allows all Europeans to resort to that court if the courts in their country of origin do not legislate over it or do not protect their rights, including free speech, Mr. Farage. And you, EU and your party want to remove the UK from the ECHR.
Free, under a human rights regime, the state gives you your rights, for which you're supposed to be incredibly grateful, but they can take them away whenever they like.
My rights are given by my constitution. Your rights are given to you by the acts of your common law. And many, or almost 99% of your legal rights under the Act are the same as our Constitution.
So we lost our bearings. The UK lost its way. It became obsessed about doing things a European way, countries, frankly, that don't have that history of liberty, freedom, and democracy.
No. First republic, one of the first republics, in Europe. Portugal, 1910. In 1908 we killed the king and the crown prince. A king that was a dictator and an English puppet. Okay? And that was bleeding us and the colonies that we administrated dry. We killed him. We installed a republic that your country, Mr. Farage, did every effort to destabilize and to end. And yet, we never fought for freedom. This is one example. I can give you millions, probably.
See, that we do.
Just finally, what do you see as the shape of things to come? Are we going to regain these freedoms or?
You did not lose them. Well, you in the United States, you lost them with Trump.
Lose them?
Well, ultimately, the people have to get what they vote for. And one of the reasons that we are seeing an extraordinary political revolution that is happening in parts of Europe, and if you believe the polls, what is happening in the United Kingdom right now is we want a government that comes in and gets rid of all these laws and starts again. And starts on the basis, yes, we want to try and protect kids, and we will do whatever we can that is practical to protect kids from serious harm online. But we will get back to the idea.
The tech bros don't want that protection, my friend, because that means more expenses to them. They are not parties. They are not politically elected representatives. they are businessmen.
Yeah, that I could insult you, you could insult me, Mr. Raskin and I can have our chats, but we do it, in a spirit that's not insightful and in a way that honours those who built our great countries. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. Well done. The gentlelady from Washington is recognized.
Well done. Are you seeing this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It wasn't too long ago that Democrats and Republicans on this committee together agreed to undertake a 16-month investigation into the anti-competitive practices of big tech companies. I represent many of them in Seattle, and proposed bipartisan legislation, which actually passed this committee, to restore fairness and competition for consumers and small businesses. That included the American Choice and Innovation Online Act, or ACOIA, which included similar common sense structural solutions to what the EU included in the Digital Markets Act. And it was a real recognition that these big tech companies are squelching competition and innovation, and that hurts consumers. It's a big turnaround then that suddenly the Republican majority wants to do something as absurd as use trade negotiations to help bolster big tech in Europe when EU has undertaken the very smart solutions that fight back against big tech monopolies and protect consumers and small businesses. Maybe it's linked to the fact that these big tech companies are now pouring money into Donald Trump's campaign funds. I don't know. Maybe it's because they're making all kinds of deals to screw consumers and preference giant corporations in exchange for campaign contributions and a 24-karat gold plaque to Donald Trump, like the CEO of Apple just recently did. Seems to me that the Republican Party has suddenly turned its back on small businesses, on competition, on innovation, and yes, even on free speech, which is apparently the topic of discussion today. In fact, one of our witnesses here claims to represent, one of the Republican witnesses claims to represent small and medium-sized app developers, but his organization gets more than half of its funding from Apple, the very giant corporation that those same small and medium-sized app developers are trying to fight. Make it make sense for me.
Nice.
Now we have this hearing centered around so-called free speech and so-called censorship, not here in America, but in Europe. Well, what about right here at home on U.S. soil, the censorship by the Trump administration, the Republican Party, on anything that they don't agree with? Let's just take a recent example. Ramesa Ozturk, a PhD student at Tufts University, wrote an op-ed in the student newspaper calling for the university to divest from Israel. It was a simple exercise of her First Amendment free speech rights. She committed no crime, she didn't bully or harass anyone, she didn't incite violence towards anyone. Action was totally peaceful. And yet, what happened? In March, the Trump administration revoked her student visa, sent masked men to kidnap and disappear her, forcing her into an unmarked car, and detained her for 45 days. Professor Kaye, how does this kind of abuse, utilizing the immigration system, in this case for now, can extend to U.S. citizens, to green card holders, to anyone else? How does this hinder the free speech rights of all Americans?
Well, we've seen already that American citizens have been caught in the enforcement of immigration laws over the last, and outside of the immigration laws over the last several months. But I think we can look at it from two perspectives. I mean, one is it's a clear violation of a student's free speech right, as you just explained it, when they're detained and set up for deportation solely because of an op-ed that they wrote. But it's also an intimidation for anybody who would write anything further. Anybody who's in that same kind of visa situation now is not going to be writing that op-ed. And that's not just a harm to them. That's not just chilling their speech. That's also a harm to all of us who would benefit from hearing those kinds of views.
In fact, right now, the Trump administration is reviewing all social media of visa applicants to see if they've posted any anti-Trump or pro-Palestinian sentiments. How does that affect our free speech rights?
Well, it's the same answer. It's a deterioration of our public debate. in this country. It's exactly this kind of, I think that Mr. McClintock had said before, putting side by side different ideas. And that's an interference with that.
So quickly, another example. In June, a Spanish language reporter named Mario Guevara was live streaming a gathering of Americans protesting against Trump's immigration policy. The police arrested him on bogus misdemeanor charges that were later dropped. A few days later, he was detained by ICE. Now we've got a government that arrests a student for writing an op-ed, filters the speech of visitors, and arrests a journalist for covering a protest. How does that compare to free speech practices of other countries?
Well, it does compare with authoritarians who regularly use law enforcement in order to transform journalism into a crime. This is a major global censorship problem, and we're seeing it in Georgia. And we see it in this context that is not just a one-off. It's part of, I think, a systemic approach to a free media in this country. That's one, and perhaps the harshest example, because I understand that the journalist remains in detention, but it's part of a systemic approach, I think.
Similar to Russia and China, places like that. Mr. Chairman, I yield back. I have some unanimous consent requests.
Now, folks, I'm going to stop the video right now. Tomorrow, I will continue to soldier on with this because, as I told you, I'm going to try to do it, but this has been extremely hard. I can tolerate people that have different opinions from mine. I have no issues with it. But if someone criticizes, in this case me, they have to at least make a bit of sense of it. But when people start to repeat narratives to me that I have heard on and on and on before, because although I perhaps don't look like it, I'm old or getting old. So I have listened to, I have spoken with, I have known a lot of things. Unlike others, I actually speak more than my native language. I'm speaking in English with you, but I have recently, for example, I was talking with French people. We were talking about all the confusion that is going on in France. And, for example, they explained to me their perspective on what was happening. This is an example. Okay? And this level of narrative that's apparently these people call politics, it actually physically disgusts me. So I'm trying to be more patient. I'm trying to let people speak, so to speak. Pardon the repetition, but it's very hard. Now, thank you all for coming. And please, drop me your opinion in the comments, okay? Down below, write it down. Sometimes I may take a while to respond to people, but that is because sometimes I really don't have time to do it. But please drop your comments. As always, if you are civil, if you are not rude, I will answer your questions or I'll leave your post if there is nothing that I have to say about it. Okay? Again, please visit the original site, Forbes. Go watch their videos, please. Go drop them a like, okay? And give them the view too. And also, please remember that this video is not monetized and it will never be monetized. I will never earn money from this video, okay? Even if for a chance these type of videos I get monetized, I will put them just for members only or whatever, because I am not going to earn my keep, so to speak, on other people's work. That is immoral. Well, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to catch you all in the next one. Bye.